Welcome to a new week. As we start this week, we're going to finish what we left off with on Thursday, which was Lesson 1-5, Adding and Subtracting Real Numbers. Before we do any actual computation, I would like to just look at a series of expressions, and all I want to know is, will the sum be positive or negative? That means you have to go back and look at your rules. When the signs are the same, you know that you keep the sign and just add. So in my first one, I'm looking at a negative sum. Will the sum be positive or negative? In the next one, I have three add-ins, but they're all negative in sign. So you see that my sum will be negative. Third problem, the signs are unlike. If you recall the rule, you subtract and keep the one with the sign of the higher absolute value. We have another negative. Fourth problem, I've got -9 plus 17. Again, unlike sign subtract, keep the sign of the greater absolute value, and we have a positive sum. The last one, again, we're dealing with real numbers. We see some fractions. We see unlike signs, so we're going to subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. And all they wanted in this exercise was, what is the sign of the sum? Last one, again, this one requires that I rewrite it with a common denominator. So I need to first rewrite this. Write the equivalent fraction. Notice that I have unlike signs, and then I subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value, which gives me a negative. Once again, all they wanted was positive or negative in this opening activity. So now let's do some calculating. When I look at these problems, I have more than two add-ins, so I have to think about what the sign will be, and I also have to do the calculation. Now, it might be to your advantage to write the like signs together, and commutative property says I can move this -9 over. Some of you will see it mentally, so you won't necessarily have to rewrite it, but if you wanted to, you could, just so that you get your like signs together, which would give me then a -20 plus 15, end result, -5. Again, if you want to, you can use your left to right rule, but then you have to then really keep track of your signs by collecting the same signs together. You're only looking at the final result for your sign. So if I do that again, I would have 4 plus 11 plus -16 plus -14. Same signs together, this gives me a 15 positive, and then I get a -30. Final answer, -15. Next problem, again, if you want, and I think that it makes it go a little smoother. Now in this one, I want you to notice that we can apply our inverse operation here. We have additive inverses here. This cancels out. So I can automatically cancel out those two. That leaves me with -28 plus 4, and I get a -24. So this is where you start using your properties, and it helps you with mental math. On to subtraction. When I'm subtracting real numbers, the rule is to add the opposite. Some people call it keep, change, change. Whatever you may remember from a previous course that helps you to remember that rule, apply it. But basically, we're going to rewrite subtractions as additions. Let's find the difference. I switch, I change. Okay, so keep, switch, change, keep, change, however you want to refer to it. I'm adding the opposite, and then I calculate. 3 plus 5. I added the opposite, gives me 8. A negative 9 plus, add the opposite, 9, gives me 0. I'm throwing in some of those additive inverses from time to time so that you can easily start using them. Okay. All right, so now what happens when there are more than one subtraction in a problem? You must add the opposite twice. Okay. So let's start rewriting. I'll have negative 11 plus a negative 6 plus 4. I had to change all my signs. Okay, that gives me a negative 17 plus 4. Final answer, negative 13. Try the next one. Remember, if the signs are all negative, you just want to add the opposite twice. 4, the opposite of negative 10 is 10, plus the opposite of 24, negative 24. Add the opposite. I now have 14 plus a negative 24, and that gives me a negative 10. On to a few more problems. Try these two. Now, in the first one, you notice that the signs are all subtraction. Be careful in the second because there's a combination of operations. Negative 10 plus a negative 6, I added the opposite, plus add the opposite again. Negative 16 plus 4. This one seems familiar. I'm not sure if I repeated it or just came out to the same answer. Okay. So in this second problem, I have negative 15 plus a negative 8, so I'm not changing anything there. I am going to add the opposite, and then I'm going to just add the negative 6. So watch your operation signs. There was a subtraction right there. Now I can go for my, notice that these are all negatives, so now you can go ahead and add across. Sometimes you'll say, well, I can add these two numbers faster than those two numbers. You do the order in which works best for you. I could easily say, oh, this is a negative 10 if I wanted to. I could then say, well, this is a negative 23. I could use my left to right rule. Ultimately, I should get a negative 33. If I've made an error, you'll bring it to my attention because I'm doing these kind of quickly, but hopefully they're correct. Last problem of the day, I believe. Oh no, I think there's one more. Let's just do this one. This is 4 plus a negative 12 plus negative 6 plus negative 10. Again, combine those like signs. I have negative 12, negative 18, negative 28. I will go ahead and add, and I get a negative 24. Let me just throw in the fractions. In the fractions, if the denominators are all the same, I'm going to look at those operation signs again. I could now leave that 5/12 on its own and just bring over this negative 12. Commutative property says I can relocate it. And then you keep your denominator. The sign here, again, is going to be negative. you figure out your numerator, we'll check it in class. Time to practice. Okay, textbook assignment today, page 34, numbers 18 to 41. I'm anticipating another quiz this week and could be looking at a chapter test toward the end of next. So until our live session, have a great day.